take a look at some campaign settings here and kind of give you an overview of what each setting means and what you should have it set at, okay, for the display network. So let's take a look at this campaign that's already here, and we're just going to kind of tweak the settings of this because right now it's just a search network campaign, okay? So if we were to set up a new campaign, which matter of fact, that's what I'm going to do right now. Let's copy this, paste it in here, okay? And this is actually a search campaign, so we'll just call this display new. And we'll remove the word topics here, okay, because this is just going to be a demonstration of the campaign settings, okay? So let's go in here first of all and go into make sure we're in the campaign, which we are, okay, and the status is paused. We've got the daily budget at 10, which is fine. The start date Google automatically puts in there on the day you create the campaign. I'm not exactly sure why it doesn't change when you upload, but it doesn't. It usually stays the same. Your ad schedule is where you can actually tweak and change your day parting and so on and so forth. Don't really worry too much about that. We're not going to talk about that right now because you can do that within your campaign. And it's really not a big part because as we get going and talk about the long-term strategy, that's something we're not even going to deal with, okay? Now let's go to, let's talk about, before we get into this section, let's go back over here. Now let's go ahead and select display network only, okay? And again, it depends. If you want a mobile app install campaign, you could create it, but we're just going to talk about a standard display network campaign. Now the reason why this is red here is because if we select display network here, we've got to disable search partners, okay? Because obviously if we're on the display network, we're not going to show in search, so the search partners needs to be disabled. Now those are third-party sites like Ask Jeeves and so on and so forth. If you had a search campaign going that you could show, as I discussed previously, okay? Under the devices, you can click on edit here. This is mainly, like for instance, if you click let me choose, right now it's all mobile and tablet operating systems. Really all of this only applies to specific mobile stuff. You can't really deselect, Windows 7 or whatever. We're just going to leave all available devices on for now because in this section here is where we can actually tweak what percentage we want to get from each device really as a whole. Usually most clients that I have will actually tell me to do minus 100% on mobile and tablet, at least initially. And when we do these campaigns, we're going to do them separate. We're going to do a mobile campaign and a tablet campaign as well, but we're just talking about the campaign settings. So let's assume that this is going to be a desktop campaign here, okay? So we're going to do minus 100% for the mobile and the tablet. Now, as we come down here further, this is going to give us a targeting option. Now, you want to start with manual CPC, okay? Mainly because, when you first start out on the display network, you really want to give the system a good chance to show you anywhere it can. Because what you're going to have to do is bid a little high initially so that you can build up some history on those placements, right? And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we move forward here. But you want to start with manual PC and disable enhanced CPC for now on this, okay? We're just going to do a straight up manual CPC. That's what I highly recommend here. Campaign. Okay, so now that we've got those settings out of the way, let's go up here and talk about the ad rotation. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can do this, a few actually, but the top two are really the main ones that we're going to focus on right here. There's optimized for conversion. So what will happen is Google will rotate your ads, and then as it starts getting sales data and conversion data, if you have opt-in or whatever your conversion metric is, it'll then start rotating and showing, or actually favoring via a higher percentage of showing of the ad that gave you more conversions, okay? If you do it on clicks, it'll show the ad that gave more clicks. Now, there's a couple of different ways to do this, and again, depending on your budget, depending on your situation, things can be done a million different ways, okay? If you are in a position where you really can't afford to wait for optimization, you'll want to pick expected to give more conversions. Now, there is a danger to this, and I'm going to tell you what that danger is. If you have a low click-through rate but high conversions, your campaign is probably not going to get as much traffic as you want. It's going to throttle out. You're not going to get the traffic. Now, if you pick provide more clicks, Google's going to love you, because now all of a sudden they're going to show your ads that are producing more clicks, which more clicks means what? More click-through rate, and that's going to help your quality score. It's going to give you more love, more traffic. But the whole key is, if you're not getting sales, what good does that do, right? Typically on the display network, you'll want to set it to provide more clicks, and then you want to optimize for conversion after. So what you'll do is you'll look at, maybe one ad gives really great clicks and it's favored it, and then you see another ad that's giving really good conversions, and then you make a kind of a hybrid of the two, okay? But again, it depends on your situation. If you're looking to get conversions, hey, I want to get conversions, and we'll figure out click-through rate later, you can most certainly do that. Now, there's a couple of other options here. Rotate evenly, show ads more evenly for 90 days, then optimize for clicks. Okay, that's one way you can do it to be a little safer, so that the rotation stays there, and ads with conversions will also show at the same amount of time as the ones for clicks as well. I'm not really sure why you'd want to do that other than for ROI purposes, or if you feel like you want the system to have more data before it makes its decision. That's another good option there, and I've heard some people say that. The other one is rotate indefinitely. Show lower performing ads more evenly with higher performing ads, and don't optimize. In other words, don't do anything. Just rotate them. I'll make the decision myself. So those are your four options. And like I said, the two most popular and the ones that I really use are either provide more conversions or provide more clicks. If I have clients with a larger budget, I'll recommend more clicks, and then we'll analyze the ads. We'll see which ones performed with conversions and to make hybrids. If I have clients that have kind of a low budget that need sales and can't really risk, I'll do more conversions, and then we'll worry about click-through rate as it comes. I mean, it really depends on your situation, okay? So we'll put this on conversions for now. The delivery method, accelerated or standard. Accelerated means if you have a $100 budget, you're probably going to be burned through by 1 o'clock in the morning, right, from midnight to 1. So I always recommend show evenly over time. And again, there's really no advantage or disadvantage depending on your budget. Actually, there is a disadvantage if you do have a small budget with either one of these that you pick. If you pick accelerated, all your ads are going to show between midnight and 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. or however long it takes to show the ads. It won't be long, I'll promise you that. And then you're missing out on maybe the highest converting times of the day. If you pick evenly over time, your campaign is going to constantly start and stop and pause and so on and so forth throughout the day. Well, Google trickles in that traffic, and thus it will affect your CPC, and it won't allow Google to get into a rhythm, right? Because it's like holding back a racehorse, right? But you want evenly over time. You really have no choice, because you want to get a good snapshot of a 24-hour period, right? And when sales come in and so on and so forth. And you want Google to have that data too for when we engage target CPA, which we're going to talk about later, okay? Exclusion method and targeting method. Exclusion method doesn't matter if you don't have any exclusions in there, but I'm going to put this on excluded location, and I'm going to explain why in a second. And I'm going to explain it right here. Now, there's two options in your targeting method, and this is a really big one here. Okay, well, three actually. People in, searching for, or viewing pages about my targeted location, okay? Or people in my targeted location, or people searching for or viewing pages about my targeted location, okay? First of all, what you need to have it set on is people in my targeted location. If you've selected United States, you want people who are in the United States, right, looking at your ads. Now think about this for a second. People in, searching for, or viewing pages about my targeted location. Somebody could be in India, okay, viewing a page about the United States, and they would be lumped into that traffic. Now, looking at past data of clients' accounts, the spend has been somewhat minimal in those areas, but there have been clients who I've saved, tens of thousands of dollars just by changing this setting because they're getting traffic all over the place. Now, Google has that by default, by the way, so you got to be really careful there, okay? And that's a real big one. So in general, this is how you would set up a display campaign in preparation for target CPA later. Now, this is what you want to do. Now, I want to go over here and talk about frequency capping a little bit. Now, frequency capping, what that means is how many times will ads appear for each person, okay? Now, you can even adjust it per day, per week. I believe it's per week as well, or per month, correct. Typically on this setting, I've heard various results from different people. I've seen settings for you typically 5. It's one of the most popular numbers I've seen. Like, as an example, okay, let's say you have, Forbes is doing well for you, Forbes.com, and your ad's been showing there. Now, there's people that visit Forbes 10, 15, 20 times a day, right? If you set your impression cap to 5 per day on this campaign, that person's only going to show 5 impressions, and then they're not going to see the ad anymore. What that's going to do is dramatically improve your click-through rate because now all those impressions are not going to count against you, okay? That's one of the biggest reasons to have a cap. And typically what I do is set it on 5, at least initially, okay? Now, as far as the content exclusions, this is going to vary greatly depending on, well, what your product is, right? I mean, that's really a big part of it. Most clients that I've seen will want sensitive target content turned off because, the product really isn't relevant to a lot of this type of stuff anyway. Gambling, in-game, and again, depends on what you're doing, right? One other thing you can do if you're not mobile, if you don't want it to show on mobile, make sure you've turned this off, right? The mobile app non-interstitial here. But the below the fold, I leave that on typically because there's a lot of times ads do convert very well below the fold, even though it can help your click-through rate if your ads are above the fold. But you do tend to lose a lot of traffic by unchecking that. But again, it really depends on what your product is and what you want to accomplish as far as to what you want to exclude here, okay? One thing that a lot of people do and really prefer to do is to exclude error and park domains. I don't because I have seen them convert in the past, believe it or not. If somebody has an error page or a park domain that's related to the product I'm promoting or whatever, I've seen those convert. So I kind of like to let my data do the talking. But in general, that's pretty much what I do when I'm setting up a campaign.